Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, Defying Gravity, so your team can soar at altitude, with host Marshall Goldsmith, Executive Coach Randy Swaim. But I'll tell you what, rising stars, when you look at some of the stuff that I deal with as far as coaching and all that, rising stars really involves youth and very young youth, and how you're bringing some of the rising stars, because a rising star program was a coaching program that was focused on young youth and everything. So it's about that. But guess what? Depending on how somebody's growing and all that, that could be a number of age levels there. But the bottom line is, yeah, it's about rising stars who are hopefully looking to become something great and have a life and have some success factors going forward and everything. And guess what? That could be youth students in school. That could be in your family. That could be your sons and daughters that are maybe in elementary school. I tell you what, I actually started using this sort of aspect with my non-biological great-granddaughter back when she was in elementary school. And I noticed one or two things along the way where I was like, yep, cool. And while she was kind of doing something, my mind, I just kind of went, yeah, you're right, girl, you got it. And so it's the Rising Stars is about people that are rising to be stars, and they're not there yet, but they're doing that. And so that could be high school students. It could be elementary students. If you have somebody who is going to work in their very first work job, it could be them, kind of thing. So that's the big thing with this rising stars aspect. And I will say this, that the big thing, if you have a rising stars, if you have a youth person that is always just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, they're not getting there. They're not becoming. They're not doing it. And so this aspect of working together with your rising stars, if all you're doing is telling them what to do, and you're just sitting there and says, well, I'll tell you what, for this, you just go do that, kind of thing. And if that's all you're doing, you're being dysfunctional with them, and you're not truly helping them develop and become. And guess what? When they graduate from high school and move to college, or they graduate from college and move to their career, they're going to have all of that already developed in them. And if you're not doing it in such a way where that can happen early on and start to become part of them, you're missing the boat. I will tell you this, that very often parents, if your parents or your family members or whatever are, all they're doing is they're pointing fingers and telling you what to do, and that's it, guess what? You're putting it on autopilot. And the thing about it is, when you're on autopilot, in a lot of ways, your brain can shut down because you're just waiting on the airplane or the situation to just do its thing. And if you're doing that, they're not thinking, they're not progressing, they're not, evaluating, they're not having clarity on the real success in it. And if you're doing that to try to kind of put them aside and just have them do this, you're missing the boat. And what you're doing is you're making it so that they cannot grow and become. They cannot be aware. They cannot develop awareness of unexpected factors that can come on scene, of the unexpected solutions that can, because guess what? With what you tell them, The solution that you tell them is in your mind, but guess what? One or two of the factors that come on scene may be a little bit different, maybe a little bit unexpected, and the ability to get radical success on it may be a little bit different. They may have to tweak it a little bit to make sure that happens. And if they don't have the mental processing ability to be able to do that, you're not doing your job, and they are just in a holding pattern because you're not helping them develop and be aware and to really become and to have vision and good decisions. And so that's when you're talking about the autopilot. And that's what a lot of people today do is they just focus on, okay, let's just do this. If that's all you're doing, you're not reaching radical results and you're not really bringing vision and awareness and clarity and and true success to the situation. Well, the bottom line is, and I will tell you, and this comes from my military background, but guess what? When you're in the middle of combat, guess what? You may have to point out a couple of things to do. And, when you're talking to the kids, there may be one or two times where you have to kind of sort of tell them what to do on this one situation because it's coming in fast, it's dynamic, it's challenging, it's just, all that. You may have to do that. But you know what? If that's the only thing you're doing, you're getting in the way and you're not helping them become. And so if I was coaching somebody who was doing that, one of the questions that I would ask them is, so at what point do you need to stop doing that? And at what point are you crossing a line where you need to not do that anymore? Kind of thing. And how are you going to have clarity on that so that you can truly develop their the rising stars and their vision and their awareness and their decision making and processing ability to truly understand the right solution. And because guess what? Sometimes that takes a few minutes for somebody to come up with, and it's not just about what you told them, perhaps. And so it's just one thing that I would think about on that sometimes people don't think about. And well, there's big things on this. One is, and I kind of let people know that the mental the processing function all happens in the frontal lobe up here. That's where your brain actually considers the factors and all that and assesses and all that. But then the one back here, which is on the very back, that's kind of your comfort zone. That's what you kind of came to 2 years ago, and something that happened and all that. If when you're talking about this, some of those aspects that you just talked about, you have to kind of be aware of at what point are you throwing everything in the side trash can and just going back to what your comfort level was 2 years ago. You know what? If you're doing that, you're not getting the job done. But also, if you're talking about your rising stars, if you're doing it in such a way where you're getting them to do that, you're shutting them down. And you don't want that with your rising stars. You have to kind of engage the mental processing of it and understand of what it's going to take to really have some clarity on, oh, wow, kind of thing. And, when they may have some real clarity on us on a solution that nobody else thought of. If your rising stars said, well, you know what, let's do that. And everybody goes, holy cow. Wow. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah. You know what? That's what you want with your rising stars. And that's what you want to develop in them so that, 15 years down the road or whatever, if they become a leader in an organization, they can engender that growth and awareness and mental processing in their team and all that. But that's just a key part of it when you're talking about some of those aspects there. And of course, one of the things that people kind of forget about is your brain kind of wires itself and it goes to what it's sort of comfortable with, what it's used to. But guess what? There is a time when you have to be aware of what it's doing and how you don't want to do that this time. If your brain is constantly going back to the comfort zone back here, there is a time where you got to kind of let it do something different. And 9 times out of 10, the way you get your brain to rewire some of that is when you come up with uh, the real questions that are not just rote academic all the time, but they actually engage in some of that. And so that's kind of a key part of that aspect of it with the different things that you're talking about. You have to be aware of what you're seeing in yourself and as a leader in yourself and in your people. And how are you going to bring that better level of growth actually to a good place? And that's all part of it from the neuroscience awareness aspect of it. Um, and like I said, and I will say this, that if you have a rising star, a youth person, that all they ever do is come ask you a question to tell them what to do, that's not what you want in these people. What you want to do is ask them some questions that get them really thinking. Now, does that mean they're going to get the right answer every time? No, but some follow on questions could help clarify what they're thinking about. Because if all you're going to do is tell them this answer, that they consider that the right answer, and guess what? Okay, anytime this ever happens, that's just what we'll do. Well, you know what? At times in the future, when radical factors come on scene that you didn't expect, guess what? That could change it a little bit. And so it's a key aspect of this that a lot of people don't fully realize. But with youth, you want to kind of grow this ability to process. Now, guess what? They're not going to be able to come up and process this aspect of getting on a spaceship and going to Jupiter, kind of thing, or anything like that, kind of thing. But the bottom line is you want to position them in a position where they begin to grow and they begin to be aware of how they can grow these awarenesses. And that's one of the things that as a leader and as a developer in your rising stars, you want to be aware of. That's a great question. You have my compliments on that, my friend. And but I will say this, that really when you're talking about this aspect of discipline, what is your real purpose in it? If your only purpose is in controlling people and shutting them down and, causing them to just shut their stuff down and listen to me and all that, you're not getting the job done. You're not doing it well. And I would say in one sense, you're not being a true disciplined person. But if you ask questions in such a way that not only do you make them kind of process a little bit and go, and you know what? A lot of times the youth may come up and say, boy, I don't know about that. And you know what? As a leader, I'd sit there and say, well, I tell you what, give some thought to it over the next little bit for maybe this afternoon or something. Give some thought to it and see what you come up with. And let me know. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you have my compliments for doing that. But the bottom line is when you're talking about that aspect of discipline, and this is what a lot of people don't understand of in societies and everything, but when you're talking about true discipline, you know, the question now, if you have dysfunctional people working for you that are lying and playing dysfunctional games and all that, yeah, you better kind of get that straight kind of thing. But you know what? That's not the kind of people we're referring to. And you know what? That's not what rising stars do. With rising stars, when you talk about discipline, it's really helping them overcome some of the stuff that's holding them back or trying to fit them in a holding pattern and just wait and stuff like that. But having some clarity in how they're really overcoming those things that are holding them back. And as I tell people and as I tell pilots and stuff, that when you're talking about leading your organization to true success, but also if you're leading your pilot, guess what? When you go to take off and fly, you got to overcome the gravitational forces that are holding you back. And you know what? When you're talking about rising stars, there is a sense where you have to kind of help them clear their vision on overcoming the gravitational forces that are holding them back. And so, and I'll tell you, when they're with adults, I will simply say that many adults are just focused on getting their own applause and having people thank them for what they're doing and just pat them on the back. If that's your only focus, you're not getting the job done. And here's the thing, if if your focus is on that, but your rising star is not really being involved in this right now, guess what? Might be a problem. You may be arrogant. You may be over controlling. You may, in fact, you may be having your discipline and your dysfunction come into play so that you're not really getting the job done. And the thing about it is, if your focus is on yourself and what you're bringing and all that, guess what? If that's your only focus, why do you not care what your rising stars are doing? Why do you care about the fact that they're not growing or they're not learning anything on this or whatever? What makes you hold back from that? What makes you, bring it up and overcome so that that's not a problem anymore? So it's just something to think about. You have to be aware of it in your own situation and be aware that your own emphasis is not just patting yourself on the back, but really building up the awareness and the synergy and the vision and all of that in your team and in your rising stars. I'm working with jet pilots and flight crews. This is an area that I bring to a lot of them, and not just overly neuroscience, knowledge, but how they're doing that. How you are doing what you're doing may be in a situation that causes your brain to just shut down and you want everybody to applaud what you're doing. You know what? If that's what you're doing and it's not making a positive impact on your people, that's a bad thing. And that's a huge thing. And so you have to be aware in your mental processing, in your mental thinking. You have to be aware of when you're setting that aside and how are you just getting that away. And what do you need to do to overcome that and truly make a difference in your people so that you are truly becoming a leader and not just a dictatorial, you know, manager or whatever, kind of thing, and making a difference. And the other part of this, I would just simply say, is also when you think about, your strategic aspect with your team, with your company, and all of this, you know what? If you're setting those people aside and all you're wanting to do is have them just shut up and do what I tell you to do, you're missing the boat. You're shutting down the company's future success potentially. You're potentially shutting down your team's success. And so, because here's the thing, if you get your people to the point where they can process this ability and this understanding, guess what? They're going to pass it on to other people that are in your company in some cases, in the way they bring questions and in the way they interact with people. And guess what? If you do that and you see your team all of a sudden reaching radical results, wow, that's cool. That's good. But that's something that has to happen. And so, as a manager, you have to understand: are you just managing and dictating, or are you truly leading? Because if you're leading, you have an understanding of this whole process, and you know what's accountable. And the other part of it is, I'll just share this with you. The other part of this is: are you aware of certain ways that your strategic vision has to tweak, to change, and adapt to really reach the radical success that you didn't expect? And, are you aware of when that could be important? And so I just a couple of the things in there of things that leaders need to be aware of. And a lot of this is rated in the mental processing of having clarity and what they need to do. It's not just rote academic things, but it's truly understanding the definition of success and how you can really get there as a team, not just with you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.